A cold wind rolls across the hills. Bonfires burn against the dark, their smoke curling like whispered prayers. You can hear voices in the crackle, names perhaps, spoken softly into the night. Figures gather around the flames, faces painted, hands clasped. They are not mourning, they are remembering. Each spark that rises to the sky is a soul called home. In the fields beyond, the last crops of the season lie gathered. Life and death meet here, the harvest and the grave, the end and the beginning. And somewhere between those flickering fires, Halloween is born. I am Gregory Hallows, and this is Preserve Halloween Podcast. On this episode, we travel back to the source, beyond costumes, beyond candy, to the first ritual fires that linked death with the harvest. Halloween was never simply a night of fright. It was humanity's oldest dialogue with mortality. We'll walk from the Celtic hills of Samhain to the Roman temples of Feralia, through Christian cathedrals and Mexican cemeteries, and into the Victorian parlors where the dead were invited back for tea. The story of Halloween is the story of how we made peace with the inevitable, how death became not an end, but a season. So long before Rome, long before Christendom, the Celts marked the year by its harvests. There were 4 great fire festivals: Imbolc, Beltane, Lugnost, and Samhain. And I'm going to apologize right now, because if I say any of these words wrong, do not give me too much grief. Just tell me how I should say them. I'm pronouncing them how I think they're supposed to be. Samhain's usually the one that most people get wrong, but we've heard over and over again that it's not Samhain. So Samhain came when the fields were bare and daylight fled early. It was the Celtic New Year, the threshold where summer's life met winter's sleep. At Samhain, boundaries dissolved. The Tuatha De Danann, the fairy folk, the shining ones, walked freely among mortals. Ancestral spirits visited homes drawn by firelight and offerings of food. Villagers built communal bonfires on hilltops. Livestock bones were thrown into the flames, a symbolic bonfire, purification and remembrance. From those ashes, families carried home embers to rekindle their hearths. Every Samhain flame was both memorial and promise, life out of death, warmth from the cold. So when the Romans conquered Celtic lands, they found Samhain way too ancient to erase. So what did they do? Instead, they folded it into their own autumn observances. One was Feralia, a festival to honor the dead. This was a day when Romans brought food to graves, spoke to the ancestors as though they could still hear. Another honored Pomona, the goddess of fruit and orchards. Her symbol, the apple, survived into modern Halloween in games of bobbing and divination. See how it's all ties together. Thus the two worlds merged, the Roman reverence for the dead and the Celtic fires of transition. And from that fusion, Halloween's dual nature was forged, somber and playful, sacred and strange. So by the 7th century, Christianity sought to domesticate the wild night of Samhain. Pope Boniface IV dedicated November 1st to All Saints, a day to celebrate holy souls rather than wandering ones. And soon after came All Souls Day on November 2nd, and this was for the faithful departed. But the folk customs persisted. On those nights, bells tolled for the dead. Poor children would go souling, singing door to door for cakes in exchange for prayers. This was, of course, the early precursor and echo of trick-or-treating. In trying to sanctify Samhain, the church ensured its survival. So, see how that worked out. Halloween became the eve, the Hallows Eve, the Hallow Even of a Christian feast built atop pagan roots. One much like a lot of holidays, Christmas, you name it. The Middle Ages brought plague and famine, and Europe learned to live beside death. Artists painted the Danse Macabre, skeletons leading kings and peasants in grim processions, churchyards filled, charnel houses overflowed. Yet, rather than silence death, people gave it a voice. They created festivals of the dead. These were carnivals for release, a reminder that death came for everyone, but laughter defied it. Masks of skulls, bones, devils, they all danced through the streets, and in their shadow, Halloween's aesthetic began to take shape. So, way long before European contact across the ocean, the people of Mesoamerica celebrated their own Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. The Aztecs believed the dead returned during harvest season, and they left offerings of food and marigolds guided them home. When Spanish missionaries arrived, they folded these customs into All Souls Day. I don't know how much they tried to just erase it, but we all know that didn't work. What emerged was dazzling. This was a fusion of Catholic liturgy and indigenous reverence, color where Europe had darkness. The colors during Day of the Dead are amazing. If you've ever seen pictures or were able to witness it firsthand, beautiful, beautiful celebration of death. Sugar skulls, candles, and laughter at gravesides carried the same messages as the Celtic bonfire. Death feeds life, and memory keeps the flame. The 19th century rediscovered death in gentler tones. This was during the Victorian fascination. Mourning became ritualized, jet jewelry, black veils, memorial photography. I don't know if you've ever seen death photography. It is both morbid and, amazing at the same time. This was the popular thing to do. In drawing rooms lit by gaslight, the living tried to speak with their dead through seances and spirit boards. Back in a certain time frame, they'd be called witches, right? The Victorians turned grief into etiquette and ghostliness into art. Their Halloween cards mixed humor with haunting, skeletons sipping tea, devils dancing politely. They taught us that to domesticate death was to live comfortably with it, which is like Victorian age. If you ever get a chance, there's a lot of Christmas ghost stories, and those are coming up. I'm going to talk about those soon probably, but check out the wealth of Victorian ghost stories. They're wonderful. So by the 20th century, Halloween shed much of its overt spirituality, but not its core. Pumpkin lanterns replaced bonfires. Children carried the soul cake tradition in candy bags with trick-or-treating. Every porch light became a miniature shrine, a welcome for visitors from both neighborhoods and beyond. Even the haunted house, filled with shrieks and laughter, is a ritual theater for mortality. We pay to face death, to be scared and terrified, and we walk out smiling. It's a cathartic release of our fears of death. And in that laughter, the old fires still burn. So Halloween endures because death endures. Halloween's never going to go away. Death is never going to go away. It's inevitable like taxes, right? Because we need to talk about it. Halloween offers what few holidays do. It's a permission to grieve. It's permission to laugh. It's permission to pretend. And it's permission to remember. Across cultures, from Samhain's bonfires to Mexico's marigolds, the message is basically the same. The dead are never gone. They just simply change forms. The harvest of souls is the harvest of memory. So this Halloween that's just passed, or next Halloween, or whenever you have the opportunity to do so, when you light a candle or you carve a pumpkin, you're keeping an ancient promise to those who came before us that we won't forget them. They will not be forgotten. We burn the fires, we bake the bread, we tell the stories, and in doing so, we carry on these traditions that help things live forever. The tradition of telling stories keeps Halloween alive. It keeps so many things alive. And that's the point, right? Halloween is not just all the fun and games. Halloween is keeping memories alive, no matter how you approach that. So until next time, whoa. Let me stop that right there. I do have a reading list, some books that you may want to check out to further explore this topic. I keep forgetting I make these reading lists towards the end of every show. So the first one is Halloween, From Pagan Ritual to Party Night by Nicholas Rogers. Pretty sure you can find all this stuff on Amazon or seek out these people directly so they get, more of the money if possible. The Stations of the Sun by Ronald Hutton. You can find translations of Egyptian texts for the Book of the Dead. There is a book called Dia de los Muertos, A Cultural Legacy by Stanley Brandis. And The Dance of Death by Hans Holbein. I'll make a list of these on the notes for the podcast. So check that out. And, if you want to make a discussion with your friends or want to listen to this podcast and come up with some talking points for other people, like a book club kind of, how did Samhain's harvest ritual shape Halloween's link to death? What parallels connect Roman Feralia to Dia de los Muertos? Why did the church absorb rather than erase pagan festivals? That is a very good topic. How did Victorians make mourning part of everyday life? And what role does humor play in facing death through Halloween? Those are all wonderful questions that if you want to do a, kind of a book club, but for podcasts, feel free. So I cut myself off before I said this. Until next podcast, stay strange, stay curious, stay spooky, and always preserve Halloween.